Will the Patriot missile batteries change the game in Ukraine, or are they a white elephant weapon, more work than they're worth? Also, we're going to look at Russian movements near Bakhmut. I'm Paul, U.S. Army combat veteran. It's December 14th, 2022. This is your daily Ukraine update. Let's get into it. So first, when we look at the map of control, you can see literally that the Russians have advanced 160 meters into Bakhmut. That is slow progress. But not as slow as it would be if it was over open terrain. All right, I want to point this out. This is actually a normal level of progress for urban warfare. Some people have pointed out that the areas around Bakhmut are heavily destroyed. Again, I want to make the point that, first off, it depends on what footage you're watching, but also that even damaged or destroyed buildings in some ways present the same or even worse challenges to urban warfare, right? An intact building, you can sort of reasonably guess where the enemy may be, right? Where they may be hiding. A destroyed building, you can't even guess at the floor plan. What's behind that door? Literally, it could be nothing. It could be an intact room. It could be a booby trap. It could be, could be just a giant open hole in the building. The more damage an urban area takes, obviously up to a certain point, the more chaotic the environment becomes, and the harder it can be to navigate. Now, so again, 160 meters, not that big, but well within normal expectations for urban warfare, especially in sort of the Russian thinking. And you guys can see that, in fact, in the schema of downtown Bakhmut, this is actually not unbelievably slow. You guys could see that with, just 2 months or more of brutal fighting, they could control a significant portion of the city if they were to advance at this pace, which I don't think they will. Well, I won't say that. It wouldn't shock me if they did, but they would pay a tremendous, tremendous price. As discussed, that, I think, is the strategy. But the other big change, we're going to pivot over to ground news. As you guys know, they've been a huge supporter of the channel. I link to them in the description. You can get their service for free. They really let us see the transparency, how the same story is reported across the political spectrum, which is so important. I actually believe Russia is ramping up its dis and misinformation efforts. Sometimes I think even in the comment section of this channel. Hi, guys. But what's fascinating is the U.S. is finalizing plans to send Patriot missile defense systems to Ukraine. Now, here's where things are sort of complicated. Let's talk about what this means. First off, we can be reasonably certain that this is actually serious because, again, you can see we've got Reuters reporting on it, AP. Generally, if these two are covering a story, because they almost never use each other's sources, they always use their own reporters. So if they both hit on the same story, it's probably correct. But also just because there's, dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of sources for this across left and right. But what does it mean? Well, the Patriot missile system is the U.S.'s most advanced air defense system. Currently, Ukraine relies primarily on Soviet-era systems to protect their airspace. Now, the Patriot, right, has been around since the 90s, but it's been upgraded continuously with improved radar and improved tracking, especially against cruise missile targets. It can be very effective. The Patriot missile system tends to fail when targets go at a really high rate of speed or just have really short flight times. Like they couldn't shoot down a mortar, and they can't shoot down an ICBM warhead that can sometimes has a velocity that's well above the speed of sound, or I think like 20 times the speed of sound. But for defending against cruise missile strikes or aircraft, it's really effective. But there's a catch. First off, it's hard to operate. It requires a trained crew to operate the Patriot missile system. It's its own sort of unique animal, right? There's no other analogous weapon system to this automated Patriot missile battery. The other big problem is that it is resource intensive. Obviously, it has proprietary missile systems, uses its proprietary radar. It has a lot of electronic components to it. And while they're all sort of ruggedized, it still expects a significant logistic tail. And this can be a problem because that tail stretches back to the United States. So there's already an existing policy, right? Getting, for example, HIMARS missiles from the U.S. manufacturers to the Ukraine battlefield. And so we think we can do that, at least for large missile systems. But again, you're going to have Patriot missile battery maintainers. You're going to have Patriot missile battery parts, and you're going to have someone who can facilitate these parts on their ordering system. Now, I suspect that the U.S. troops, U.S. Army formations currently stationed in Poland, of which there are several thousand, they almost certainly have a established logistic tail to handle this. Let's see if we can take a look at just how many U.S. forces are in Poland. Here we go. In October, the Warhorse Battalion took over command of Battle Group Poland. So, Battle Group Poland. Let's see if it says everyone else. So it's run currently by, at least headquartered by the first Cav. And this is going to be, so this is a cavalry unit. Obviously, U.S. Army formation. So they are the ones who field the Patriot missile battery. So it seems highly likely that these guys are going to, okay, for OPSEC reasons, I don't think they acknowledge the full size. But generally, if you're talking about a battalion command formation, you're talking about at least a brigade underneath them. So we're probably seeing 5,000, between 3,000 and 8,000 troops would be my guess currently in Poland. So there's almost certainly, right, these troops can almost certainly function as a logistics and supply hub for 90% of what the Ukrainian forces will need to operate their Patriot missile batteries. It's also possible, though I would be curious to know if it's authorized, for Patriot missile batteries turned over to the Ukrainians could be brought into Poland for servicing by the U.S. Army and then signed back over to the Ukrainians. Now, that, again, there may be political fears that close collaboration with the Ukrainian armed forces may be seen as making U.S. troops military targets. But they've already provided the weapons and the gear. And even if it's one of those things where sometimes the political considerations produce bizarre outcomes where, for example, a U.S. technician cannot work on the Patriot missile battery, but they can advise. And so you'll have a U.S. technician literally standing there being like, okay, now enter, now pull up the first screen. Okay, now go to diagnostics. Okay, there's the part order, write down the part number. Okay, write it down. All right, now walk over to your parts person. Like, you produce this outcome where you want to legally be able to say, nope, the U.S. Army doesn't do repair operations on Ukrainian Patriot missile batteries, but they do. Again, I don't know. I read the same articles that you guys do. There's no secret intel. I'm just speculating on how these problems tend to get solved. And I hope, if anything else, you guys think about the fact that we use the word, we send them weapons. Well, it means a lot more than that, and it's a lot more complicated than just that. It involves solving a lot of problems, and honestly, it depends on sometimes regular individual soldiers having the poise and wherewithal to get the job done. Again, somewhere in that formation are a group of Patriot missile battery maintainers who unexpectedly might become the linchpin of the Ukraine's at least air defense efforts in this conflict. And that's just That's just what you sign up for when you're in the military. Anyway, guys, that is all I had for you for today. Thanks so much. As always, of course, if you want access to the uncensored combat video breakdowns, the viral ones that I can't show you on YouTube, you want to become a member of the Patreon. New video drops every Friday. Thanks so much to my Lieutenant tier patrons. You guys are the ones who make this whole thing possible, and I will see all of you guys in the next one.